Hey, greetings. Welcome to another episode of The Business of Agriculture. It's me, Damian Mason. Got a great show for you today because I got a great guest. In fact, he's the sponsor of this podcast. His name is Nick Horob. You've heard me talk about him now all year. He's the founder of Harvest Profit. Harvest Profit is a software solution for your agricultural enterprise. You've got inputs, you've got outputs, you've got farms to manage. You have so much stuff going on in agriculture. You need a software solution that is right there for you. You know, it's beyond a piece of Pioneer seed corn notepad in the glove box of the truck. Okay, that's why you need a software solution that works as hard as you do. Software from Harvest Profit. Go to harvestprofit.com and try it out for 14 days for free. Okay, Nick, thanks for being on here. Before we get into that, we're going to set up the show for all of our lovely listeners. We're going to talk about some things that this guy sees as an ag innovator, as an ag tech person. We're going to talk about where ag is going, what products he created, what new products we're going to see, because we know that we are an industry that always adapts and it does adjust using new technology. Also, some of the problems that we've seen. You know, agriculture, it's been a year that we got a lot of money thrown at us. What's going to happen next year, and what can we do on our side from a farming operation standpoint to get through the bumps? Those are the things we're going to be discussing and more with a brilliant agricultural entrepreneur, Nick Horob. Thank you for being here, Nick.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being a sponsor for the show, but also I think that one thing, the reason people tune into the business of agriculture is we don't just talk about corn prices and put up, charts of, wheat deliveries to the Pacific Rim. We're talking about the business of agriculture. And you started a company 5 years ago that you said, I see a need. The need you saw then and what you see now. Let's start with that.
So most farmers in the U.S. do cash basis accounting, and there's a lot of, in Canada, it's a lot more accrual accounting, but what tends to happen in the U.S. is, if you think about any given crop year, farmers buy some inputs the year before they raise the crop. The year that they raise the crop, they buy more inputs, more seed, fertilizer, chemical, then they sell some of the crop they grow, and then the next year, they typically have some more crop that they sell. So you have 3 separate years of financial transactions that feed into one crop year. And that end of the year time, if you know anything about farmers, you get to the end of the year and they get a hold of their tax guy and they say, what do I need to do? And it's either buy more things before the calendar year or push off revenue to the next year. So trying to massage their tax liability. And so that gives them very little visibility into what's making them money and what's costing them money. You know, their tax statements have almost no correlation to what's actually going on a crop year basis. And so Harvest Profit, we're really focused on giving that crop year visibility into cost of production, profitability, and then doing it making it easy to view what crops are making me money, what fields are making money. So we take it down to the field level, and just to give the farmer more visibility into those different levels, the levers that you pull. So your inputs, your rental rates, your grain marketing, just to kind of split out those levers and then allow them to do what if analysis on, what if I push my grain marketing forward? Or what if I add a new farm or let a farm go? And so we're trying to really give more visibility, leads to more confident decision-making, which I think leads to more profitable farm.
Okay, so you said a lot there, and I always bear in mind that the business of agriculture is listened to, and by the way, and also watched. If you are a listener, I thank you, but you should also watch, because all this year of 2020, because you're more at home or more in front of your screen, we're told, according to the media, we're all in this together. You have time to watch this, and it's been a video recording, so you can watch Nick and me talk about this. Go to my YouTube channel, Damian Mason channel. Go to YouTube, Damian Mason channel, and just subscribe there. And you'll see the playlist for business of agriculture. Okay, a lot of these people that are listening and watching might not even run their own business. And they're like, what the heck? I don't want to sound dumb, because we always educate here. What's the difference between cash basis accounting and accrual basis accounting? I just talked about this morning at the gym because a friend of mine said, hey, what's going on in ag? I own John Deere stock. And I said, yeah, you're going to be fine. He says, are they going to keep selling equipment? I said, between now and December 31st, they're going to sell a boatload of equipment. He says, why? I said, because commodity prices climbed about 20% since July. And we also threw $51 billion of federal money at the farm sector. So that means they're going to have money to get rid of through cash accounting. And he says, so I explained it to him just this morning. Tell our listeners the difference and why this matters, because that's really the basis of what you're talking about. Your product, you saw a need 5 years ago and said some of these farm operations, particularly mid to bigger sized ones, they know whether they made money that year or not, but they don't even know if it was because of that year's decisions. Am I right?
Yes. Oh, exactly. Yep. So an example would be, let's say you have a business and you pay in July, you write a check for $6,000 of property and casualty insurance. And so then if you look at your financial statements, from January to December, you see your expenses in July went up. So you look at July and you think, oh, my profitability was, why is my profit lower in July? Well, according to accrual accounting, you would take that rather than just having that expense fully burdening the month of July, you would take it and split it $500 a month throughout the whole calendar year. And the same thing with revenue, like in Harvest Profits business, just for simplicity, we have some customers that pay us $1,500 a year. Cash accounting records $1,500 in the month that you receive it. Accrual accounting takes $125 a month and spreads it out over the entire year. So when you're looking at monthly or quarterly financials, it's lining up really when the expenses and the revenue are actually occurring, regardless of when the cash changes hands. So it's a better methodology for truly analyzing the financial performance of your business.
So again, maybe our listener is in ag, but doesn't run their own business. So they work for a corporation and they're like, I never really understood all that. And the reason then that a farming operation, because they have vast numbers, I know people they don't look like big farmers, but they're like, yeah, I sold $1.5 million worth of crop this year. If they look like they're fat, meaning they look like they are going to have too much revenue against expenses, they're going to pay a lot of taxes, and farm people do not like to pay taxes, then about New Year's Eve, they'll be at the equipment dealership saying, I'm going to buy that piece of machinery and get $250,000 off of my books. That's the issue of cash accounting. A little business like mine does cash accounting, meaning it's not just amortizing July, as Nick explained, it's really your years, meaning that whatever happens between Jan 1 and December 31 happens in that year. So that's what he's talking about. So he's talking about helping an operation look at what happened in not only July of this year, but July of last year and July of next year, and then making the best decision possible. That's what we're talking about, right?
Correct. Yep. Exactly.
All right. So you fixed a problem when you came up with Harvest Profit. You said, I want to help these ag enterprises make more profit, and it's going to begin with their accounting, but it's not just accounting. Yours is not just an accounting software that their CPA could have given them. It's more than that. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So if you think about a tool like QuickBooks, that'd be financial accounting software. And then if you look at, we'd be considered managerial accounting. So it's just not for debits and credits. It allows you to view your financials on the same level that you can make your management decisions. And so you can do what if analysis. It pulls in your grain contracts. It pulls in futures prices. So it says, regardless of what cash has changed hands in my business, like where is my profitability at today? So for example, a lot of our customers have set up their 2021 crop budget. And so they're looking at, all right, if I harvested my 2021 crop today, what is my best estimate as of things sit right now at where my profitability is? So, they can look at the rally we've had in commodity prices and say, all right, objectively, if I have out of my 14 fields on my farm, maybe there's 3 of them I can switch the crop on. Does it make sense to plan to push those to one crop versus another crop? And that forward-looking visibility is something that just doesn't exist in accounting software. Traditional accounting is all backwards looking, but if you're driving a car, just looking in the rearview mirror, bad things are going to happen. And so, a similar but a lot less dangerous analogy can be made to the business. You need to be looking out the rearview mirror just as often or more often than looking in the rearview mirror, because you can actually change the future. So
or at least adjust for it. You can't change it, you can adjust for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so in agriculture, your company serves agriculture, particularly production agriculture. Changes you see in a foot, or changes you've seen just in the last 5 years since you started your company. What thing would I not maybe see, or maybe you and I see, that maybe somebody in our audience might be like, what would you say?
I would say there's a lot. I see a lot more effort from farms to improve what they have versus just going. It's an ultra competitive environment for buying land, for renting land, and so a lot of people are looking at what land improvements can I make, drain tile, looking at potentially implementing cover crops into the farm. As monocropping, whether it's corn or wheat. I think more diverse rotations are just becoming the expected, and with a diverse rotation comes a willingness to look at specialty crops that particularly where I come from in Western North Dakota, pulse crops, so lentils and chickpeas and feed peas, things that are arguably that have less commercial fertilizer, that are good for the rotation. So I think there's a lot of focus on how can we improve the farm that isn't just going out and acquiring more land or renting more land or maximizing production. I definitely see a lot of effort and a growing trend in focusing on improving what the farmers have.
Yeah, I do. I don't see it as quickly as I actually would like. As a conservation oriented soils guy, we give some talk to soil health, but I can still see a lot of excess tillage that I deem to be unnecessary. I still see a lot of fall tillage of land that is going to have an erosion problem. I see some of those as well. Now, I have predicted that under the next administration, and I'm not getting political, I'm just telling you, these things have already been proposed and discussed. There's going to be more either regulation. Is it going to be carrot, or is it going to be stick on some of the conservation things we're going to be made to do in agriculture? Do you have any thoughts on that?
One of the bigger trends in agriculture and investment and ag tech is the whole carbon. Like, how can we help farmers monetize their conservation efforts through carbon? But if you so there's just tons of money that's flowed into it, lots of press releases. But if you look at how many farms have actually received a check, it's tiny. I would say you could probably, the farms that have actually received a 5-figure check, you can probably count on two hands. And there's 500,000 farmers in North America. And so there's going to be more of that, more talk on the carbon. And there's going to be political tailwinds to that discussion. And, but at the end of the day, it's a really messy game. If I'm a no-till farmer who really values soil conservation, I've already done my fair share of carbon sequestration, so I can't benefit from that. How unjust is that? But so it's just a lot of talk, but trying to really tie the economics of it to the benefit. And I have some thoughts that we can talk about on stuff we're working on there, but that's really,
I want to hear what thoughts you have, and I also want to, for sure, I want to hear about that then moving forward. By the way, you said 500,000 farmers in America. Technically, there's 3.2 million farmers on 2 million farms. I think you were talking about farmers of a scale or farmers of a level that are doing the work. Do you want to put a qualifying asterisk on that?
I'm pretty confident that there's approximately 150,000 full-time farms in the U.S. and Canada. And so if you just say there's 3 times that receive a material amount of income, and then there's just lots and lots of just really small. They have a couple cows, or they they share crop a 20-acre field, things like that.
That's in my book, Food Fear, which you'll notice I pulled a Where's Waldo kind of a thing. I've got my book in the background here of this shot, Food Fear. I talk about farming and farmers in one of those sections, and I give the real scoop on that. And 105,453 farms in the United States of America produce 75% of all the crop revenue. So what Nick is talking about is if you were out here trying to sell a product in the business of agriculture, there's probably going to be far less than the 2 million farms that you would actually target as your customer, because unless you're a TSC and you're selling bird seed, there's a bunch of them that just aren't going to be able to be much value to you as a big dollar customer. Nick, you're going to talk to me about what things you're seeing in terms of some of that farm stuff. If you think that's the biggest change on farm is some of the maximization of acres and utilization of the resource better, I want to get into that. Before I do, a couple of things. I want to remind you that I'm talking to Nick Horob. You can follow him on LinkedIn. He writes good articles. You can go to harvestprofit.com. That's a company he founded. He's got good articles there that you can read. They're short. They're also smart. They're about the business of ag, observations he has on maximizing your business. Go to harvestprofit.com if you want to learn more about the products that you can use, his software that could help your farming enterprise. I also want to remind you that we're heading into the holiday season, and not to piss off Santa. I'm holding real milk in my hand right now. Why am I holding real milk? Because the Georgia Agricultural Commodity Commission for Milk is now working with me on a contractual arrangement to help them promote their wonderful product, cow's milk. None of that oat juice, none of that nut juice that's infused with sugar, real milk. If you leave a box of oat squeezins under the Christmas tree, you're going to piss off Santa. Don't do that. Drink milk. Have a little milk break with me right now. All right.
Some real cream in my coffee. So
I appreciate that. And so do the dairy farmers of America. Drink milk, the real stuff, and don't piss off Santa. Okay. Talk to me about the stuff you're working on at the farm level because of these changes you see.
So if you drive around farm country, and I know a lot of people might not drive around farm country, specifically all over the farm country, oftentimes the edges of fields are 50% of the productivity of the rest of the field. And so, currently in Harvest Profit, we look at things on a field level. So we get down to what's the profitability per field. But what I'm really passionate about, and some recent developments in our company might enable more of this going forward, but something as simple as identifying on a large scale, what percentage of your farm or even multiple farms aren't even able to cover their variable costs. So if your crop revenue can't even pay for the seed, fertilizer, and chemical, that's when factories shut down. Like if you have a negative gross margin, that's when you turn off those. If you think about every field is a manufacturing plant, and even every square inch is a manufacturing facility. If you can identify the areas of the field that aren't even covering their variable costs over the long term, so doing subfield spatial level profit analysis, to me, that is where you just naturally tie in conservation and the economics. So I am definitely excited about that.
So one thing that you're basically saying is, because we talked about this in a previous episode of the Business of Agriculture, about if you were and the guy used the example of dairy, since obviously I'm a dairy background guy and I work with dairy people, and we were ahead of the curve, especially in dairy. They had a thing called the Dairy Herd Improvement Association. What the Dairy Herd Improvement Association used to do was come to your dairy farm before all the computerization, before they had chips on cows and bracelets on their cannon bones and whatnot. You just said cow number 137-5 is not producing. She's not getting bred. She's not producing. She's inefficient, whatever. Let's make her into burger. The truth is, what you're saying is there are edges of fields that should be made into burger because they're not even producing enough to cover the variable cost. And a rule that they taught me in agricultural economics is you produce as long as you're covering your variable cost. But when you now are not only not covering your variable cost, that means you're cutting into also it's a fixed cost. Am I right?
Yep, exactly. Oftentimes you'll hear businesses in other industries that, one that gets talked about, well, any commodity business, and one that kind of hits home for the people that listen to this, or for me, is like the ethanol industry. The ethanol industry has times of high profitability, times of low profitability, but how often have we ever seen ethanol plants, the ethanol industry turn off plants? It's happened very little, up until, in recent times, we actually saw it happen. And it's because, you might be burning cash, but if you make more money running the plant than you would by shutting the plant off, it's because you have a positive gross margin. So that I think the same thing can be applied to farms. And just thinking bigger picture about it, farmers are inundated with agronomic data, but tying that agronomic data to financial data to give not just yield insights, but to give economic insights is really what's kind of driving me and our business going forward on marrying those two together.
Talk about at the ag level, and you're a business guy, so beyond just farms, what business, not mistakes, but what business things are they doing that you're like, here's where I now know, because of running my own business for 5 years, because of my background in private equity, the different things you've done in your 37 years of life and learned. What things are ag people doing? Anybody, whether it's the co-op down the road or the equipment dealer or the farmer, what do you see? You see all kinds of stuff. What are you seeing? Mistakes they make, opportunities missed? Just give me some of your thoughts.
So one of the big mistakes is something you alluded to. There's 100,000 farmers in Canada that make, or in the US, maybe another 25,000 in Canada that operate real, these are their businesses. Out of those 125, 150,000, how many of them are open to making a material sized expenditure on something new? Like, an early adopter, right? It is small. Like, at the end of the day, the market as a percent of how many businesses, the revenue is still big, but how many businesses are there that are going to be open to buying a new treatment, a new piece of tech? It is quite small. And so I see these companies raising a bunch of venture capital, raising tons of money, staffing up huge, and then realizing that, wow, this market is a little bit smaller than what we thought. And that's a huge mistake we see. And another mistake that I've seen is farming is the definition of a multivariate problem. You have all of these variables playing into a crop yield, for instance. The timing of rain, the specific, if you get if you get 75 hundredths, 3/4 of an inch rain, or 1.5 inches rain, that could be a huge difference in the final outcome for the crop. And so one thing where I think a lot of people have made mistakes is, let's use AI, let's use big data to tell the farmer how to grow a crop. And what works in a test farm in Iowa completely falls apart if you go to Kansas or Ohio or Indiana or North Dakota. And so that black box, we're going to give the farmer a magical prescription for how to farm. There's a lot of work left to be done before that becomes effective. So market size and not realizing that farming is a very, very, very complex problem. If you have 37 variables that all spit into a final equation, it is almost impossible to solve that.
Yeah, well, granted, I'm not a scientist, but I have taken science classes. And when they talk at great length about you get everything controlled and then vary one thing, then you can gauge the outcome of that one thing, right? That's the idea. Is like, we're going to control these 14 different things and vary the 15th thing. And then we can decide which variable on that 15th thing mattered. As you said, now we've just done the thing. And granted, there's a seed plot down the road from me, let's say. And they're like, okay, exact same field, nothing. I'm like, yeah, I get that. But now let's put that up to scale. Because I've yet to see a seed plot where there was this brand of seed next to this one, where the seed company didn't tout it was really, really good, right? Yeah. So you got 70 some variables. Did you ever was that the problem you saw when you said, I want to help them, or that's just something you see now and you're wondering if that's something else you could help with?
The problem that I saw was farmers were just doing the same thing that they've done. And, the results are the results. And it's easy to get paralyzed by the fact that the future is uncertain. But just because the future is uncertain, that doesn't mean that we can't make proactive, objective decisions today that increase the likelihood of us making money going forward. With this recent rally we've had in commodity prices, a lot of farmers were praying for, they had $3.50 corn on their balance sheet. They were praying for $4 corn. If you would have asked them 3 months ago what you'd think of $4 cash corn today, they would all be ecstatic. But how many of them are, once it actually happens, biases come into play? And I'm a huge believer in all these. You and I and everybody falls victim to just one of 100 different biases out there, and knowing your numbers helps to minimize that impact. And so that's really, I think that if you can make numbers-based objective decisions, that it minimizes the chance of that bias really throwing you down a path of just a rampant speculation that's going to blow up your farm.
God, if I could ever get to $4, if we could ever get to $4, if we could, you know what? I'd sell everything if I ever got to $4, and I would just be dancing in the barnyard. Oh, wait, it's $4.25. You still got stuff you haven't sold. Well, it might go higher. I'm like, you just said 4.5 months ago that if, and by, yeah, is that what you're talking about?
So a quick story. I knew a farmer who went to visit his dad in the nursing home in the summer of 2013. He told his dad, and his dad wasn't doing very well. He said, Dad, yeah, corn, guess what? Corn is $7 cash today. And the dad looked up from the bed and said, do you have any left to sell? And the son said, yeah, I do actually. And the dad said, what the hell were you thinking when corn got to $6? And, it's just like that situation just plays out a lot. Yeah, that roller coaster of emotions, and it doesn't only impact farmers. Farmers tend to, I think, get maybe an overly judgmental view of how they make those decisions. But if you look at when do people buy and sell stocks in their retirement portfolio?
They buy when it's high and they sell when it's low.
Yeah. So it's just something we're all like those biases are hard to navigate, but being just a little bit better than average is interesting.
So you are a small biz person or big biz person, depending on your definition of small or big businesses, but you run your own business. You've made mistakes, and also you, like me, have had business. You've had highs, you've had lows, you have some variability. June might look different than December, might look different than March, whatever. What have you learned?
I've learned
understanding your own biases is one of the lessons I just heard.
Yeah, one of the bigger lessons that I've learned is it's easy. Like, I love spreadsheets, and it's really easy to craft a business in a spreadsheet. Well, that doesn't look great, so we'll just add another few hundred customers. Well, actually getting those few hundred customers is pretty hard. And so I started de-emphasizing the results and started overemphasizing the actions that tend to lead to those results. So for our business in particular, if I can produce content that people find interesting, so sending out email newsletters and making blog posts and making videos, that has a positive correlation with our business. Those are easy things for me to do. I can do those. But if my goal is to get 30 more customers this month, we don't have a direct sales model. So that's not easy to do. But so I've really started to emphasize, focus on the things that are highly correlated with better results and focus less on the results themselves. And that was, if you looked at our business, we had a growth period, and then we had a flattening. And then during that flattening, I started focusing on a lot. Like, I just got to produce more content. Let's make our free trial easier. Let's make the software better. And by removing the emphasis on the results, that led to a big increase in our business.
You've got 5 employees. You're looking at now being acquired, which is great for your business. I've got my wife and I and some contractual arrangements. I've been piloting my own ship for 26 years. So we have a different sort of business and certainly a different business model. But what you just said is something that I've always, I guess, known. And I finally wrote an article about it a year ago, Nick, because I had somebody call me up and say, I started my own business and I read your books and all that. So, I really invest in this. I don't know where to focus my time. I said, use the Rocky method. Rocky meaning here's the first priority. Revenue has always been, if you don't have revenue, you have no business. Number two, outreach. Number two, I said revenue and outreach are the two thing. What's outreach mean? Getting more people that could give you revenue. Whatever makes you revenue, number one. Number two, outreach to get more things that make you revenue. Three, creativity, the creative stuff that you do, creating more product, creating more articles that bring in people that will help you with the outreach, creating more ways to serve the clients. K of the Rocky was knowledge, because this world don't sit still and you shouldn't either. And then Y was you. And they're like, what? I said, you're going to be exhausted. Give some time to you. Go meet your buddies for beers, have a card game, sit with your wife, go for a walk with your dogs. So I always think that that's kind of the thing. And what you just said there was you concentrated on revenue and you try and concentrate on getting people that can pay you revenue and then creating.
Yep, exactly. Yep. And you got to, just the fundamentals of business. Every so often you see, somebody start a free product and they just naturally think the revenue is going to come. Free can be powerful if you have a logical way to turn on the dial for pricing. But really it's just, you need to have something that people are willing to buy, like have a product or a service that people are willing to buy, and then get more people into that funnel. So more prospects into that funnel. And I met with somebody, this is a few years ago now, and they really liked the blogging that we were doing. And I said, well, you should start a blog today. What's preventing you? And they were saying, well, we're putting a plan in place. And I said, well, if you can't sit down for half an hour and write something that's a few hundred words long, that's interesting to your target market, then you probably shouldn't be in this industry. Like, that's been, in today's era, what you're doing, content, getting in front of people, being somebody who's interesting. Like, that is such a powerful tailwind in building a business today that I think a lot of people get, I don't know, they're scared of it. It's kind of intimidating. I'm actually an introvert, but for me, like, if I wouldn't have embraced content and putting myself out there, I would not be here today. So.
You're an introvert. I'm actually an introvert. My wife tells people that, and they're like, oh God, he's got a background in comedy and he does podcasts. He's been in movies. He gets on stage and talks. She's like, yeah, but you know what? He goes and hides in the hotel room and orders room service and sits on his laptop after he's done doing that. And he doesn't say one word to any person on an airplane ever. And people are like, oh, I can't believe that.
That is hard to believe.
We sometimes have to be a different character for our business than we really are when we're out walking with our dogs in the woods. You do a really good job of looking forward. And by the way, you're right. And anybody listening to this, what Nick just said, if it's your business, something that I do, and obviously people keep up with my stuff, they see what I'm putting out there in terms of commentary and all that. I've also never been bashful about putting it out there or even offering a bit of free help, because you said free isn't only powerful. I won't charge you for my services, but when then someone says, hey, I've got this group, what do you think? I'll spend a half an hour with them, because then that's how I get clients, where I say, I think you need to do this, or I think, well, we've got 9 people, new sales people, they don't know this. And so I'll say, let's have a call. Let me see if I can be the solution for you. So I've done some of that on a consultative business arrangement. You do a really good job of looking out. What do you see?
I see that we're going to, more and more farms are going to take the business minded approach to farming. I think there's more emphasis on treating a farm like it's a manufacturing plant. I think in just the industry in general, if you look at charts of ag tech investment versus ag tech exits, there's a disconnect there. I think people are going to realize that monetizing the relationship with the farmer is much harder than what they think, and so I think industry, bigger established brands in agriculture are going to start to understand that we need to become best of breed technology companies and not just seed companies. A competitor to us, somewhat of a competitor, and it's kind of a controversial brand, but Beck's Hybrids seed company out in your part of the world, they've invested a lot of money in technology, and I'm hearing good feedback from farmers on that. We can talk about it. Maybe it's even probably another episode, but Harvest Profit, my company, was acquired by John Deere recently. And so they're realizing that we need to be an end-to-end technology solution. And so I think taking what's happening in the field and turning it into a conduit for business intelligence and allowing farms to have more visibility into the number side of the farm is really what's going to turn it from a reactive industry into one that's more proactive. And that might be, eliminating the unproductive areas of the field, seeking out crops that, have alternative markets, carbon. But big picture, there's been a lot of funny money thrown into ag that's going to get flushed out here real quick. And at the end of the day, people that can truly help farmers become better at managing the manufacturing business they have are going to bubble up to the top. And I think there's going to be a fair amount less fluff in the industry going forward.
Fair amount less fluff. Also, I see what you're talking about, and it falls in with my prediction. There's going to be consolidation continually happening at the large scale. You call it farms as manufacturing facilities. Our detractors call those factory farms or industrial agriculture, but the reality is that's what is happening, and it's like trying to say, we're not going to have Toyota. So we're going to have farms that are Toyota, and we're going to have also then a proliferation of the smaller niche stuff because there still is the demand for that among the foodie crowd. So I think there's going to be a divergent split. Now the next question is, are you going to have something to offer the person that says, I have 80 acres of organically raised kosher kumquats? Are you going to have something for them, Nick?
We have a flat price, but for smaller operations, we do a business worst practice. We have a variable price that maxes out. Most businesses have a minimum that has a variable price that goes up forever. Our whole game is we want to let anybody in the door to help better tracking their numbers. And going back to what you said about factory farms, I know of two specific examples that are areas that I drive by quite often. One of them, on one side of the road, is a small mom and pop farm. The other side of the road is one of the biggest farms in the country. This fall, the biggest farm in the country had their light sandy ground all planted to a cover crop. The other one was deep tilled, ready for wind. It's going to erode in the wind. It's going to erode in the rain. And 2 miles down the road, it's another prime example of that. And so, factory farming gets a bad name, but at the end of the day, it's almost all family farms who have a direct financial incentive and who mostly care about the environment. Obviously, people are everybody's trying to maximize their economic outcome, but I do think the factory farm mentality gets a bad rap.
Well, that happens in the suburbs of America, like where I live half the year, because they don't know any better. But the reality is, you're talking about practices and you're talking about protocols, and a lot of times larger scale people actually do have a better job of practices because they have the system in place. Closing thoughts from my man Nick Horob of Harvest Profit, who also is the sponsor of this podcast. In case you forgot between the beginning and the end, harvestprofit.com is where you can go and check out their products. Also read Nick's blog articles. They're good. As he said, sit down for 30 minutes, crank out 300 words. It's short, it's smart, and it might help your business. Closing thoughts.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm super passionate about whether it's helping farmers. I do like sharing how we've built our business on just putting valuable content out there. And I think if whether you're a farm or whether you're in business, if you can understand just a little bit of this modern marketing, like what Damian's doing is, your podcast obviously generates a little bit of revenue, but it's to build up your other businesses and build up your brand. The same thing can be applied to any business. The same thing can be applied to a farm. And then, you'll go nowhere if you don't understand the number side of your business. And so this mix of, in farming, it's more of a mix of being good at producing a crop and being a good financial manager. In other businesses, I would say it's more of, being good at marketing and being good at the numbers. And I think those, in any industry, like find that combination, find that magical combination and focus on, improving your weak spots in each one of those niches. And so if a farm's great on the production side and they're terrible on the number side, a tool like Harvest Profit is great. If you're in another business and you're great on the marketing, but you're not great on the numbers, hire a CFO or hire a controller. So, a chain at the end of the day, I'll say a chain is as strong as its weakest link. And so, myself out there, I know I have a couple weak links that I'm trying to fix, and new ones are getting weak. And I think if anybody can take that mentality to their business, fix the weak links, focus on your strengths, I think it's a recipe for success no matter what you do.
His name's Nick Horob. You can follow him. He's on Twitter, Nick Horob. He's on LinkedIn, and also you can keep an eye on his company, Harvest Profit. We hope you got ideas that you can utilize and thoughts. By the way, that article I wrote about the Rocky method for time management for your business, I think is a valuable one. So while you're checking out Nick's stuff over at harvestprofit.com and figuring out if it's a software solution you can use, you can also go to damianmason.com where you can find all my podcasts. You can also find the articles that I write, like the one about managing your time using the Rocky method, which Nick and I both agree, concentrate on revenue and outreach first, because if you don't have customers or revenue, you ain't got no business.
Yeah. Agreed. Thanks, Damian.
Thanks for being here, Nick. Till next time, a toast with milk. And thank you. Till next time, it's the Business of Agriculture.